Hello and welcome to another edition of Motor Cars Enthusiasts. Right off the bat on the old show today, yes, we're going to talk a little bit more about Volkswagen. Now, if you don't know the whole situation as of yet, and this is by far probably one of the biggest, more outreaching stories that I've ever covered on this particular program. That's even including that whole sudden unintended acceleration deal from Toyota and the ignition switch deal from General Motors. This thing is far bigger than this deal. Alright, now if you don't know what's going on, basically this is the deal. Volkswagen's TDI turbo diesel engines were maybe going to have some troubles passing emission standards, especially at the EPA emission standards here in the United States. Instead of Volkswagen actually fixing the power plant and making their clean diesel run cleaner, they just changed the algorithm in the computer system, which allowed the vehicle to understand that it was being tested and would change the engine mapping to allow the vehicle to pass the EPA numbers. But once it was out on the road, the vehicle would let out at least 30, 40 to 50 times the emission standards set by law by the EPA. Now, not only Volkswagen embarrassed about this deal, the EPA is embarrassed because obviously they didn't catch it. In fact, they signed off on this machine, and some university in West Virginia actually came up and figured out that this deal was going on and brought this to light. Volkswagen's not the only manufacturer that's having troubles as well. We're hearing some early reports that possibly BMW may be in the same situation as well. And I'm sure that a lot of other manufacturers are heading down the pike that may have done the same situation. I.e., this is probably the reason why Volkswagen never fixed this deal. They just kind of covered it up. Now, as far as Volkswagen is concerned now, we're hearing at least a couple of more heads are going to roll. Not to mention the Volkswagen Group, as far as the German government is concerned, Germany's looking into this deal as well. They're claiming that the light truck side of their division, their commercial vehicles, may be infraction as well. Not to mention it wasn't just the 500,000 cars that were sold here in the United States. We're talking about millions of automobiles that were actually sold all over the world that may be an infraction as well, as a lot of other countries are looking into this as well. Again, 60 lawsuits are actually filed here in the United States. Even the fact that the FBI is looking into this deal as well. Now, we talked about Volkswagen. Some more heads were going to roll. Apparently, the head of Audi's development, he's probably going to get the axe. Not to mention the head of Porsche development, he possibly is going to get the axe as well. But Volkswagen now has a brand new CEO, and it's this guy. This is Matthias Müller. He was the CEO of Porsche, and he's going to get to move up into the big spot as CEO of the Volkswagen Group. He's got a lot on his plate. This is going to be a tricky situation to try to get around. In my early look at this deal, I think that the U.S. public or the world public doesn't really care about this particular deal. This deal hasn't killed a bunch of people or anything like that, or at least none that they know of as of yet. So I think this may be an easier deal. Maybe market share won't be affected that terribly bad. And several months later, after all the fines are paid and everything like that, this deal will just kind of end up going away, just like a lot of other big scandals. In some happier news, let's talk about the brand new Ford GT. Ford has already reported that 600 units of this vehicle is going to be built. Now we know the production cycle, at least 200 of these machines will be built a year, 100 for stateside consumption and 100 for the world's consumption. Still haven't got official power numbers, even though we reported some teaser stuff, at least in some video games that was reported, but we'll wait and see. A lot of that stuff's coming out very soon. Another of Ford's hot little vehicles, the little brother to the GT, the Ford Focus RS. Ford's actually putting together it looks like an incredible little documentary that they're putting together that's actually going to be released on YouTube and other internet sites. I put up the teaser video up on the Facebook page right now, but it's going to be an interesting little insight from the conception to the construction of the all-new RS and even on into actual testing and all that stuff, even getting to the point where Ken Block, Gymkhana fame, actually has gotten his hands on this machine as well, doing some testing. So, pretty neat little deal. Cannot wait to see more of these. If you want to, check back on the Facebook page. I'll post them there. Next up on the list, well, you may remember this little concept, Honda's 2 and 4. Basically, they let their engineer group kind of go wild, and they developed this little car that was shown off at the Frankfurt Motor Show floor. Well, there's an interesting little deal. Apparently, this vehicle could go into production, according to Honda, with obviously some modifications to it as well. That could make me more happy because I really think this thing is the bee's knees. So, but again, it's just a little auto show talk that may just be a little bit of fancy talk, and they may not be planning on it at all. But would really love to see this thing exist. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Formula One. Yes, many here in the United States, many around the world, pretty excited about a US-based team that is going to be fighting in Melbourne, Australia in March of 2016. Haas Formula One, actually based in Charlotte. They're also going to have, I bet assume they're going to have a camp base over in Europe to actually develop the cars and obviously to cut down on some of the shipping costs. But apparently in the next couple of days, in fact September 29th of 2015, they're going to release their driver lineup. And their driver lineup is going to be interesting indeed, because a lot of the rumors are floating around, especially around the Japanese Grand Prix, as that this fellow may be their lead driver, Romain Grosjean, who's been driving for Lotus. Killer guy. I mean, he's really been killing it. Way back in the day when this car was first developed, this Lotus team, him and Kimi Räikkönen were killing it in that car. But since then, this team has really fallen on hard times, especially with the funding. A lot of deals may be that this team may go away. There's a lot of talk still that Renault may end up buying Lotus, but apparently Grosjean may be on his way out, and we'll know in a handful of days who he will be driving for if he drives for Haas. Not to mention their second driver. A lot of American fans are really pounding their chest, really wanting an American driver in this car. I think this car needs quite a bit of development. There's no current U.S. Formula One driver other than Alexander Rossi, who's driving for, I think he's driving for Marussia right now, but he's only driven a couple of Grand Prix. In fact, only one Grand Prix at the taping of this program, as we're only hours away from the Japanese Grand Prix. So, going to be a neat little deal. This U.S. team is going to be pretty neat to see how it does next year. Next up on the list, we talked about this young lad in the last show, Jensen Button. We're talking about his retirement. Apparently now Button's come out to say that this was all just a situation where it was taken out of hand. Basically, he was passing Niki Lauda, in mid-70s world champion in Formula One, who still works for the Mercedes-Benz team. In passing, he talked about the fact that he didn't think Formula One was fun anymore, but he was basically saying it as somewhat of a joke, and he was getting ready to go take a whiz, is actually where he was heading to, and apparently Niki Lauda spread this all over the old interwebs, was basically going to the press is what he did, and got this rumor started. Apparently Button has no plans on retiring. He's going to end his career at McLaren, so as long as McLaren wants him to drive, he will continue to drive that McLaren F1 car. So hopefully we'll get to see him on the grid in 2016. And hopefully McLaren and Honda can get a handle on that car and it can run a little bit better than it has. And that's all there has been for that was worth talking about for this week's Motor Cars Enthusiasts. If you want to jump on over to the Facebook page, links down in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, you can do so at any time and get the first dibs of the brand new shows as soon as they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again real soon.